Welcome to this wonderful camera-sponsored Harvard Law School event, fighting against BDS, warfare by other means. I really wish I could be there. I miss Harvard Law School. I miss the students, but after 50 years and 10,000 students, I decided to retire and devote much more of my time to defending Israel, defending human rights, and defending civil liberties, which I'm now essentially doing on a full-time basis. So I'm so pleased that so many of you turned out to learn how to combat the evil of BDS. And BDS is truly an evil. There is no such thing as a BDS movement. A movement suggests that it's something that is universal and pervasive. Nobody is talking about BDS against China. Nobody is talking about BDS against Cuba, against Belarus, against Russia, against other countries with horrendous human rights record. BDS is only directed against the nation state of the Jewish people, so it can't call itself a movement. A movement would say, look, we have this tactic. It's called boycott, sanction, divest. Let's apply it by the basic principles of human rights. The worst first. Let's pick the worst countries in terms of human rights and apply it to them first, and then get down the line to other countries in order of how bad their actions are. Second, the human rights principles always say, apply sanctions first to those countries where there are no democratic means of achieving protest, where newspapers are shut down, like in Iran, where protesters are jailed, like in Turkey, but obviously in Israel, there is a vibrant democracy. Organizations like B'Tselem and others constantly are criticizing the Israeli government. So by any standard, one cannot say there is a BDS movement. How the BDS situation came about is that a group of anti-Israel advocates said, how do we delegitimate Israel? How do we destroy Israel? How do we demonize Israel? How do we apply a double standard to Israel? And they said, aha, let's come up with this concept called BDS and apply it only to Israel as part of a more general plan to demonize and to delegitimate Israel. So it's important to understand BDS in that context. The anti-Israel campaigns on university campuses could not succeed without the help of hard-left, radical, anti-Israel faculty, some of them Jewish, some of them Muslim, some of them not. But the faculty play a very important role. It's probably only 10% of the faculty at most universities, more in some departments, linguistics departments, a few other departments, specialized departments like feminist studies departments, Native American studies departments, many of whom have signed on to BDS. No university has, of course, accepted BDS, and none will. But the irony is that there are probably more pro-Israel faculty members on most campuses than there are virulently anti-Israel faculty members. By pro-Israel, I don't mean pro the current government. I don't mean pro the current approach necessarily. I mean generally supportive of Israel. Whenever I speak on college campuses and make the case for Israel, I get phone calls the next day from members of the faculty, often Jewish, who say, thank you so much for coming to our campus. We too support Israel. And I say, but I haven't heard your voice. And they say, well, we don't really want to become public. There are so many pro-Israel Jewish faculty members who support Israel in their heart, in their soul, in their synagogue, in their family, but they don't have the courage to express their pro-Israel views on campus. They are terrified that their student evaluations will be affected, and they will be. They are terrified that they will be denied admission to honor societies, and they may be. They are worried that they may not get promoted or get taken by other universities, and that is a reasonable fear, but tenure suggests that you must be courageous. You must speak honestly of your views. It's not enough to support Israel in your heart and in your synagogue and in your family. The big problem has been faculty members who are pro-Israel not being willing to speak up. There are exceptions. There are some on almost every campus who are prepared to speak up. But there are many, many, many more who support Israel but are terrified about speaking up. That has to change. And the only way it's going to change if its students compel their teachers to speak up, make them feel guilty for violating their obligation of tenure, make them say in public what they say to you in private. And if they don't do it, tell them that they are essentially violating the concept of academic freedom and tenure, which require people to express in public views they hold in private, not to express the views in the classroom. The classroom's sacred. No teacher should ever, under any circumstances, express views or compel students to agree with views in the classroom, certainly in required classes, which happens all over the country today. I taught for 50 years at Harvard, and I never told students what to think. I tried to help them learn how to think, how to analyze. I never wanted to turn a conservative into a liberal in my classroom. I wanted to make them a better conservative or a better liberal. The goal of the teacher is to help students learn how to analyze, not to fill their brains with propaganda and either pro or anti-Israel attitudes. The classroom is not the place for advocacy. Outside the classroom, advocacy is to be encouraged on all sides of every issue. And the other problem I see on campus today is it's very hard to have a nuanced discussion of Israel, Palestine, and the Middle East. What we have is shouting and polemics and exaggerations and black and white and extremism on all sides. And what I worry about most on college campuses is this new concept of intersectionality. Never has a more phony concept been developed by hard left academics. As applied, intersectionality is the newest code word for anti-Semitism. What it means is that groups who oppose Israel have persuaded other groups like environmental groups, civil liberties groups, civil rights groups, feminist groups, pro-gay groups, any of those groups, that you can't be a liberal or progressive today on a college campus unless you also demonize, delegitimate, and apply a double standard to Israel. Jewish kids and Christian kids, too, who want to join progressives organizations are told in no uncertain terms, you're not welcome here unless you're prepared to denounce Israel, because intersectionality requires that. There is an intersection between all of these groups and the fight against oppression of Palestinians in Israel. You don't have to be in favor of any other group in any other part of the world. You don't have to support the Tibetans in their claim to independence. You don't have to be in favor of Chechens. You don't have to have a point of view on the Ukraine. You don't have to have a point of view on repression in parts of Africa. No, that's okay. But you must have a negative point of view about Israel. Otherwise, you're not welcome under intersectionality. Probably the worst example of this is this extraordinary concept of pink washing developed by a Jewish professor at one of the New York City colleges. And what she claims is that, yes, of course, Israel is good for gays and lesbians and transgenders. Of course, they have the best policy of any country in the Middle East and one of the best policies in the world. Of course, they never had don't ask, don't tell in their army. And of course, there are gay generals in the Israeli army. Of course, all those things are true. But the only reason that Israel does this is to whitewash, pinkwash, because it's a gay phenomenon, pinkwash what they are doing to the Palestinians. Now, that is the worst form of anti-Semitism. Classic anti-Semitism says, nothing the Jews do is ever done for a good reason. You always have to look behind and find the bad reason why the Jew is doing something that appears to be good. When Jews give charity, there must be a bad reason for it. Pinkwashing is yet another form of blatant anti-Semitism and the application of a double standard to Israel. And so we have to expose these phony arguments about intersectionality and about pinkwashing. They catch on. They become voguish on campus today. We know that there are professors on campuses all over the country that use the classroom to indoctrinate students. There was a course at Harvard Law School not so long ago that certainly was accused of doing that. Virtually every university has courses like that. At Columbia University, a professor called on a student and he spoke with an Israeli accent. And the professor reportedly asked him, "Are you Israeli?" And when he said yes, He asked, "Do you serve in the Army?" And he said, "Yes, I served in the Army." And the teacher said, "I won't allow you to speak in my class unless you acknowledge that you have committed war crimes and that your country has committed war crimes." We've heard so many instances of this, instances of students who have been graded down for not making the anti-Israel arguments in their final papers, students who have not received recommendations, papers that have been refused by journals because they're written by Israelis or present a pro-Israel perspective. That's intolerable on a campus, and there are a lot of things that can be done. In schools that permit this, there's nothing wrong with tape recording or recording what professors are saying in the classroom. These are public, open events. These are not secret private communications. I'm not talking about confidential discussion between a teacher and a student. I'm talking about a public lecture class with perhaps hundreds of students. Some schools have rules prohibiting recording, others don't. If they don't, recording is perfectly proper, or taking careful notes and then presenting them to the appropriate authorities. I'm not talking about McCarthyism here. I'm talking about holding teachers accountable for abusing the classroom and abusing the trust of the classroom. If you had racist professors or sexist professors who were using the classroom to promote white supremacy or to promote homophobia or to promote sexism, I have no doubt there would be accountability. I don't see any difference between using the classroom to attack the nation state of the Jewish people and using it to attack the aspirations of other groups and other minorities. Also, alumni can play a very important role in making sure universities don't accept BDS. So far, no university has accepted BDS, although some faculties have voted for it. And I think it's important that we understand the university is not just the current student body. It is the alumni group, it is the faculty, it's the student, it's the administration. And it's very important that without denying any academic freedom, and never, ever under any circumstances, try to stop a speaker from speaking outside the classroom at a university. I don't care if it's a Holocaust denier or somebody who calls Israel genocidal. They have the right to express their views in a public forum at a university outside of the classroom, as long as the rules are applied equally to all sides. When I spoke at Johns Hopkins, students were screaming that I was harassing them. This is even before I spoke. They said I was harassing them and violating the code of Johns Hopkins University by harassing the students by refusing to publicly state that Israel commits war crimes. That's a new one for me, harassment by silence. But then they walked out on my speech, wouldn't allow me to persuade them that perhaps they should listen to some of my ideas. At the University of California and at Irvine, I was shouted down by groups that were determined to prevent me from speaking. And we know that many other professors, many of them peaceniks and supporters of the two-state solution, have been forbidden from speaking at campuses because organizations and groups shout them down. Now, heckling is permissible under the First Amendment as long as it's brief and to the point and doesn't involve trying to stop the speaker from expressing their points of view. But shouting continuously to prevent a speaker from speaking not only is not permissible under the First Amendment, but it's a violation of the First Amendment when it's tolerated, certainly at a public university. Truth has its place on a university campus, particularly a university campus whose motto is Veritas. And so I think truth is always the answer to falsehood. Censorship is never the answer. Never try to stop anybody from expressing views different from your own, but always undertake the obligation to correct falsehood and to present alternative views so that the marketplace of ideas remains open to different views. Let me end on an optimistic note. You know the definition of pessimism and optimism in Israel. In Israel, a pessimist is one who says things are so bad they can't possibly get worse. The optimist says, yes, they can. So that's not the kind of optimism I'm talking about. I'm optimistic because Americans are decent and good people, and most people on university campuses are decent and good people. They will listen to the truth, which is why CAMERA has become such an important organization. CAMERA doesn't censor, it simply adds to the dialogue in the marketplace by substituting truth for falsity and letting people pick and choose what arguments they want to accept as long as all the arguments are presented. I do think we're winning these fights against BDS. I think we're winning the center in many university campuses, but we can do much more because the hard left is much more vocal than the center. And hard left professors are much more willing to abuse their role as teachers than are centrist professors. And I'm not suggesting we fight fire with fire. I'm not suggesting that pro-Israel points of view be injected into the classroom. What I am suggesting is that outside the classroom, that we become more active and more vocal and present a nuanced, centrist, strong case for Israel, a liberal case, a progressive case, a pro-gay case, a pro-women case, a pro-black case, a pro-case involving all minorities, a case that shows that not only can you be supportive of Israel if you're a liberal or a progressive, but if you are truly a liberal and a progressive, you must be supportive of Israel. There's no alternative to that. You can't be supporting Hamas and Hezbollah, which are fascist organizations and which are organizations which are intolerant of free speech and freedom of religion and women's rights and gay rights. It's always been remarkable to me how the hard left allies itself with some of the most reactionary forces in society. So keep up the good battle. Use organizations off campus like CAMERA to help support you and fight for truth and fight for justice. You know, the Psalms of David say, for those of you who speak Hebrew, Hashem oz le'amo yitain, God will give the Jewish people oz, strength. Hashem yivarech et amo b'shalom. And only then will the Jewish people get peace. Israel thrives and will make peace only if it is strong, only if it is militarily capable of defending itself, only if it has secure borders. The best guarantee of peace, the best guarantee of negotiation is a strong Israel. A recent book was written that demonstrates that those administrations that have been more supportive of Israel have gotten Israel to move more toward peacemaking than those administrations that have distanced themselves to Israel. So be strong. Never be embarrassed about using your strength, every kind of strength, academic strength, moral strength, financial strength, in support of justice, and never remain silent.